Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today on Go EdTech Go for 532 Transfusion Confusion. I'm going to go over what comes in the box and then tell you how I'm going to adapt the lab to do the blood typing. So the first thing in the box are your wells. You have some red toothpicks. You have a bunch of these little tiny test tubes. I have 10 of these in here. You have some micropipettes, and you have your blood samples, which I'll show you how I set those up. And then you have a container to hold them all. I have those labeled, I'll talk about those later, but I think a white light is a good way to do this as well. So I know in the past when I've done this, I've used these little well plates and I put the drops in here, and then the students will take this toothpick and mix it up. And sometimes you get little pieces of plastic in there, so it gives you a false sense of it agglutinating. So I want to get rid of these and do it in a different way. I think it's going to actually work better. So I'm going to put these over to the side along with my pipettes. And I'm going to show you what I have in my bag. So these are the student kits here. So each student is going to have a blood sample for each one of the patients. So I'm going to just set these out for you. Here are my 5. And then what I'm going to have also is an anti-A and an anti-B. And you'll notice that in the blue is the anti-A, and in the yellow capped is an anti-B, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these little test tubes as my samples. So I'm going to use these for the samples instead of the well plates. So let me set it up, and then you can take a look at the setup. Okay, so we're going to go through the blood typing lab. As you can see here, I have these set out so that I know exactly what everything is. So for Jane, I have Jane A here and B. I have Mary A and B. I have Tom A and B. Harriet A and B, and Ed A and B. So I'm going to use these test tubes instead of the plastic wells in order to do this. So I'm going to take 2 drops of the blood and put them into each one for each patient. So I have Ed here, so I'm going to put 2 drops of blood into Ed, and then 2 drops into B. Okay, and I'm going to set Ed over here since I'm done. I'm going to take, this is Harriet. So I'm going to take Harriet and put 2 drops in A, 2 drops in B, and put Harriet over here out of the way so I don't use it again. Then I have Mary. So I'm going to take Mary and I'm going to put 2 drops in A. This is the blood here. And 2 drops in B. Don't worry if you put a 3rd drop, it's okay. Okay, now I have Tom. So I'm going to go ahead and put 2 drops of Tom's blood in A and 2 drops in B. Set it over to the side. And then lastly, I'm going to take Jane and I'm going to put 2 drops of blood into Jane's. That might have been more than 2, but that'll still work. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my anti-A, which is in the blue cap, and I'm going to put 2 drops in every one of the A's here on my rack. So I'm going to put 2 drops there, 2 drops in the A on Mary, 2 drops of the A in Tom, 2 drops of the A in Harriet, and 2 drops into Ed. All right. Now I have my anti-B, so I'm going to take my anti-B and I'm going to put 2 drops in every one of the ones labeled B. So 2 into Jane, 2 into Mary, 2 into Tom, 2 into Harriet, and 2 into Ed. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let them sit for a little bit. It's probably easy if you grab them and kind of just shake them up a little bit, tap them together, give them a little swirl. Oops. I'm just mix up a little bit. Okay. Now what we're going to do is let them sit here for a couple minutes we'll use our white light and see which one's agglutinate. Okay, it's been about 10 minutes. We let it all set up. We all let it agglutinate. And what you can see is on my setup here is I have it on one of the white lights. I figured this is the best way of doing it. It gives the best result. So I'm going to turn off the lights in the room. And I'm going to turn on the white light here. And what we're going to do is we're going to look straight down on them, and then we can see which ones agglutinate and which ones don't. Okay, let's look at the agglutination for Jane. So if I look over the top, you can see that that's A and that's B. Let's look at the agglutination for Mary. This is A and this is B. Now let's look at the agglutination for Tom. This is A and this is B. Now let's look at the agglutination for Harriet. This is A, and this is B. And lastly, let's look at the agglutination for Ed. This is vial A, and this is vial B. Okay, for Mary, it's a little deceptive, so we weren't sure, so we took it out. Okay, you can see as we take them out and put them by the white light that there is agglutination in both of these. So if you can't tell, it's okay to take them out and kind of look at the bottom of them and see if you can see if agglutination is actually happening. So this is Mary, and we are looking at it again because we weren't sure if it agglutinated, but they did in fact agglutinate in both. Now that you've done the lab, you can go back to your samples and take a look, or you can go back to the video, and you're going to put a plus or a negative in this column if it agglutinated. So positive if it agglutinated or negative if it didn't. And then a positive or negative in B if it agglutinated or not. And then you're going to put your blood type in this last column here. That'll give you everybody's blood type. Then you can move on to the transfusion. For the last part, we're going to look at transfusions. So we're going to see which one of these blood types can give to another blood type. So let's take a look at what the rules are. One of my favorite websites to do blood typing and transfusions is this Nobel Prize educational games, and it does a blood typing game. So if you're looking at the very beginning of this assignment, it asks you what is a blood type. So it has 3 tutorials here. If you click on that one, it'll take you through a tutorial about what a blood type is, how blood types work. It talks about the different types of blood, the 8 different types, and it talks about antigens and antibodies. So this is a good reference to finish up the beginning of this project on 532. Now, if you look at tutorial number 2, it tells you how to determine a patient's blood. And I'm going to take you through the game to show you how you can determine a patient's blood just like you did in this lab. So you can double check yourself on how it all works, but it tells you how to do that there. But lastly, and most importantly for me for the transfusion portion, is it has a tutorial on how transfusions work. And I can show you how to do that as we move through. So this is a very good chart right here. So for transfusions, if you don't understand it, it will tell you that O can only receive blood from O, A can receive blood from A and O, B can receive blood from AB and O, and AB is great because you can get blood from AB, from A, from B, and from O. And we didn't talk about RH and the positives and negatives on this one, but it's important to know that an RH can receive blood, an RH positive can receive blood from RH positive and RH negative. RH negative only receive blood from a RH negative. So this is a good chart for you. So I did say that if you go back up here to the top and you play the blood typing game, this will kind of test your knowledge. You can test yourself at the end of this. You can press play. And it says, quick, the patient has been in an accident and needs a transfusion. You're going to collect it. So go ahead and collect the blood. And now you're going to put the blood in an anti-A and an anti-B, just like you did. And I know we didn't do this in class, but into the RH. And now we saw agglutination in A, agglutination in B, so that means that the blood type is AB. And we saw agglutination in RH. And RH, if it agglutinates, that means it's a positive. So this is RH positive, okay? And you're bloody right. Go ahead and click on it, and now it's going to ask you to use your knowledge of transfusions to give this patient a blood transfusion. You have 3 lives, so you can give him 3 wrong bags and he'll die, or you can give him 3 correct bags and save his life. So up here on top it says AB with an RH positive. So obviously if you have an AB RH positive, that's going to work.
Yes.
Very nice.
Yes.
Okay, and
Yes.
there we go. All right, so we can go back to that. It'll give you a different patient each time. If you don't give them the correct one, it'll cause issues. Okay, cool little game to check your knowledge before we finish up this lab and move on to the assessment. Thanks for joining us today on Go EdTech Go. For more lab videos, go ahead and subscribe and make sure you check out our PBS and HBS videos.